Tonight on our newscast, an auditorium at a resort hotel in the southeastern city of Gyeongju collapses, killing 10 and injuring more than 100. Tons of snow that had piled up on the roof and poor construction are being looked at as possible causes. An al-Qaeda-linked Islamist group claims responsibility for the bombing of a tour bus in the Sinai Peninsula over the weekend that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans. Egyptian authorities continue to piece together what happened. Together, everyone achieves more. It is in team events that Korea usually excels, so the short track relay team is expected to shine tonight in Sochi. We have a preview of tonight's action and a recap of all the stories making headlines out of the Winter Olympic Games. Stay with us for these stories and more on Early Edition at 6.
It is 4 a.m. in Washington, 1 p.m. in Sochi, and 6 on a Monday evening or Tuesday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Moon Geunhye.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Daniel Che. We'll start with horrifying news out of Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju.
Right, a building collapse on Monday night has claimed the lives of at least 10 people and injured more than 100 others.
Emergency crews are still on the scene with rescue and recovery operations now in their final stages. Our Eoh Jin-joo has the latest.
It only took about 10 seconds for the roof of an auditorium at a resort hotel in the city of Gyeongju, Gyeongsangnam-do province, to collapse on Monday night. Some 560 students from the Busan University of Foreign Studies were in the middle of an orientation event for the freshman class when the ceiling started to crumble above a stage set up in the front. 10 people have been confirmed dead and more than 120 injured, with 1 or 2 people in critical condition.
Everyone was sitting comfortably on the ground, but then everyone was heading to the exits all at once, and it was total chaos.
As for what caused the collapse, the area had received a record level of snow over the past week, and the snow that had piled up on the roof was estimated to weigh nearly 150 tons. The building was huge at 900 square meters, but had no pillars to support the roof. Compounding matters, the ceiling and outer walls of the auditorium were made of sandwich panels, which are usually used to build temporary structures or storage spaces. Sandwich panels are made out of thin steel plates filled with styrofoam and are known to easily absorb moisture. Even though the snow seems likely to be the primary culprit, many experts are pointing to the weakness of the building structure as the main factor behind the collapse. The government and the police have launched an investigation into how the building was constructed to determine whether the auditorium was up to code or built shoddily. President Park Geunhye, during a cabinet meeting Tuesday morning, expressed grief over the tragic incident and offered her condolences to the victims' families. She also ordered a thorough investigation into the cause of the accident. Eoh Jin-joo, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on to another tragic incident. Police in Egypt say they believe a suicide bomber carried out Sunday's bus bombing that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans. After reviewing CCTV footage of the attack, police concluded the bomber boarded the tourist bus and detonated explosives near the door. An al-Qaeda-affiliated Islamist terrorist group in Egypt known as Ansar Bait al-Maktis has claimed responsibility for the bombing, saying it had previously warned it was planning an attack. In an online statement Monday, the group promised to continue to target the state's leaders and economy by hitting tourism sites and blowing up natural gas pipelines. Meanwhile, 15 survivors of the attack who were expected to return to Korea on this Tuesday are still in Israel as they are struggling to find a flight home. Japan's foreign minister says he wants to hold high-level talks with Korea to ease tensions between the two countries. The call comes ahead of U.S. President Barack Obama's visit to Asia in April, but with historical disputes still at the fore, the prospect of improved relations appears grim. Our Yoo reports.
Korea-Japan relations, which remain strained due to territorial and historical disputes, took a dive in December when Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine, a shrine that honors World War II-era war criminals. In an aim to break over 2 months of silence and mend ties, Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida at a news conference on Tuesday expressed a will to meet with his South Korean counterpart Yoon Byung-se. He emphasized the importance of trilateral cooperation between Japan, the United States, and South Korea in the face of the threats posed by North Korea. Kishida had already conveyed hopes for high-level talks when he met with Korea's second Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol last month in Switzerland on the sidelines of an international conference. The new call for talks comes ahead of U.S. President Barack Obama's visit to Asia this April. Earlier this month, at a meeting in Washington, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry urged Kishida and Japan to improve relations with Korea ahead of President Obama's visit. High-level talks do not seem imminent, however, as there's been no resolution to speak of on the historical disputes that divide Korea and Japan. Japan has yet to offer compensation to the so-called comfort women who were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during the Second World War. And this Saturday, Japan will hold a controversial event stressing its claim to Korea's easternmost islets of Dokdo, or Takeshima as they are called in Japan, despite Seoul's repeated calls to scrap the event. Yurian, Arirang News.
China's foreign minister has reaffirmed his government's commitment to persuading Pyongyang to give up its nuclear program. Wang Yi said on Monday that China was resolute in its determination to denuclearize the North, and also warned Pyongyang that there would be no troublemaking on its doorsteps. His message may be carried by Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Liu Zhenmin during his 4-day trip to the North that's slated for this week. Liu will be the most senior Chinese official to visit Pyongyang since the execution of Chiang Sung-taek last December. Meanwhile, President Park Geunhye says the two Koreas need to find a way to hold more reunions for families separated since the Korean War. At a cabinet meeting on this Tuesday morning, Park said only a fraction of the 3,800 South Koreans who applied to be reunited with family in the North will have the opportunity to do so at an upcoming round of reunions scheduled to start Thursday. She said it is significant that the reunions are going to take place as planned, despite the North's previous call to postpone the event because it overlaps with the start of a planned annual military drill between South Korea and the U.S. She also urged North Korea to keep its promises to the South and reiterated that her government will deal with humanitarian affairs such as the reunions separate from military or political issues.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by 2 points. The National Assembly wants answers about what happened last month when millions of people had personal information leaked as part of a massive data breach. On Tuesday, lawmaker asked 2 people believed to be responsible some tough questions. Ji Myung-gil reports.
It was the biggest data breach in Korean history, with millions of people affected. At a hearing on Tuesday, lawmakers heard testimony from the 2 main suspects in the case, an employee at the Korea Credit Bureau, a ratings agency who is accused of stealing the personal information of more than 100 million people from bank and credit card firms in recent months. He is suspected of selling the information to an advertising agency executive for 23 million won, or a little less than $22,000.
It was purely spontaneous, and I did it for personal reasons. I didn't give the data to a broker.
The majority of the 24-person committee said the man should be indicted for perjury. Both men, if convicted, could face up to 10 years in prison or a fine of up to $500,000. Lawmakers also presented evidence from their own investigations. One lawmaker presented evidence that a foreign broker had traded Korean client information with a Korean broker. Another lawmaker on the committee said he had never used a KB Kookmin credit card, but that his personal information has still been stolen. He had traced the leak to a single transaction made 20 years ago at a KB Kookmin bank. He said there should be laws imposing harsher punishments on firms that do not control the way client data is shared among institutions and their affiliates. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok said the government is doing all it can to prevent additional leaks in the future.
We are planning to thoroughly overhaul the way we penalize companies that are responsible for data breaches. We are also working with other government bodies on related legislation.
The government is also planning to impose hefty fines of up to 1% of a company's total sales if they are subject to future data breaches. CEOs from the three credit card firms KB Kookmin, Lotte, and Nongyup, from which the personal data of up to 20 million Koreans was leaked last month, said they had strengthened monitoring of their employees and established new policies to better control the sharing of customer information between affiliates. Kim Young-gin, Arirang News.
Korea's mobile advertisement market grew at a sharp pace last year, backed by a boom in display advertisements and mobile applications. The report released by the Science Ministry and Korea Internet and Security Agency said Tuesday that the nation's mobile advertisement market size reached slightly over $390 million in 2013. That's a nearly 93% jump from the previous year. Now, although the total makes up just 4% of the total advertisement market here, it more than doubled in 2013. Meanwhile, some more good news. Korea ranked 5th in global auto production last year, having produced a total of 4.5 million automobiles. The Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association said Tuesday that production shrunk, or nearly 1% in 2013 from the year before, and that 5.2% of all automobiles produced in the world last year came from Korea. Now, this is the lowest rate in 11 years, and despite a gradual decline in recent years, the country has maintained its ranking as 5th largest in the global car production market for 9 straight years. China produces a quarter of the world's automobiles and sits at first place, followed by the U.S., Japan, and Germany.
Unfortunately, we have more news of death and destruction from other parts of our world. A series of bomb explosions in the Iraqi capital on Monday have left at least 24 people dead. Local police say a minibus packed with explosive blew up at a bus station in northern Baghdad's Shia district of Ur, and another went off at 2 mosques that are mainly frequented by Shia Muslims. No group has yet claimed responsibility, but Sunni Islamist insurgents are suspected as they've been trying to gain control of predominantly Shia-controlled districts in the city. Shifting gears now, there's never a shortage of art to enjoy here in Seoul, and this week is no exception. From traditional and modern craft works to the private collection of a former American soldier who was stationed on the peninsula during the Korean War, our cultural correspondent Park Ji-won has more.
At Culture Station 284 in central Seoul, a former train station turned art gallery, more than 360 pieces of traditional and modern Korean craftworks by some 100 artists are now on display. They include traditional craft art pieces by late Korean masters, such as lacquerware inlaid with mother of pearl, as well as contemporary pieces like collaborative craftworks that incorporate elements of light art and installation art.
Korea's craft arts have many sub-areas, from textiles and wood to metalworks. My work is based on intense sewing by hand, which is the groundwork of any textile craft.
The exhibition is free of charge and will be open through March 9th, except on Mondays. The highlights of a private Korean art collection are currently on display in Seoul, 1 month ahead of a Korean art sale scheduled for March at Christie's in New York. The auction will mostly focus on the collection of Robert Moore, one of the most well-known Western collectors of Korean art. He's in Korea this week to show about a dozen pieces from his 135-item collection. Since his first visit to Korea as a soldier in the 1950s, Moore started collecting antique Korean art pieces from porcelain jars to folding screens. He says it's the unique features of Korean art that have drawn him in.
Natural, spontaneous, and made to be used by everybody, including the court and the most humble people. They can be very good or they can be just ordinary things, but the very good things, as you see in this gallery, are special, and that's what attracted me, and that's why I've been devoted to it.
The Seoul preview will continue until Wednesday at 신세계 Gallery in Central Seoul. 박지원, Arirang News.
Well, Monday was a day of new records in Sochi for Team USA, which won gold in ice dancing, and for Korean bobsledders who didn't win a medal but did set new records for Korean athletes.
Well, for a look at all the stories making headlines from Sochi, we are joined by reporter Connie Lee. So, Connie, well, the Korean women's curling team is out of contention for a medal, but, today's gracious loser is tomorrow's winner, and of course, they really increased the awareness and maybe help shoot up the popularity of the sport a little bit this time, right?
That's exactly right, Daniel. But this was the first time the Korean women's team was competing in curling at the Olympics. And like you said, that's definitely generated more interest in the winter sport among Koreans. And there are hopes for better results in future Olympic Games. So on Monday, the Korean women's team fell to Canada, officially knocking them out of the semifinals. They finished their first time in the Olympics in 8th place with 3 wins and 6 losses. Now let's get to some of the records out of Sochi on Monday, starting with one very happy American skating couple. I'm talking about Team USA's Meryl Davis and Charlie White. The pair won America's first ever ice dance Olympic gold medal on Monday. Now these two have been practicing together for the past 17 years. And at Monday's event, they danced to Russian classical music, finishing with a total score of 195.52. Now that was more than 4 points ahead of their rivals and training mates from Canada, Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer, who actually won the gold at the 2010 Winter Olympics. Now the Canadians had to settle for a silver this year instead. Now it's all about Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in 2018 for Korean bobsledders Won Yun-jong and Cha Young-woo. In the 2-man bobsleigh event on Monday, the team didn't come close to winning a medal, but their 18th place finish was actually the highest ever by a Korean Olympic bobsleigh team. Won and Cha said they would learn from this Olympic experience and now set their sights on Pyeongchang. The Russian team actually took the gold in this event, which excited the local fans, of course. And meanwhile, Switzerland took the silver and USA won bronze, their first podium finish since 1952. Now, there was actually another Korean team, Kim Dong-hyun and Jung Jun-lin, competing in this event. They finished 25th and failed to qualify for the final run, unlike the other Korean duo. But they too have 4 years to get ready for the next Olympics. And an exciting evening is on the way for Team Korea fans. On the ice, we have the 1,000-meter heats for the ladies' short track event with 3 Korean athletes in contention. Coming up at 6:30 p.m., about 10 minutes from now, we have Park Seung-hee, Shim Seok-hee, and Kim Ha-rang will line up for the race. Park Seung-hee is already an Olympic medalist. She won the bronze in the ladies' 500 meters, and so is 17-year-old Shim Seok-hee, who won the silver in the short track event over the weekend. Also tonight is the 500-meter heats for the men's short track at 7:15 Korea time. We have two Korean athletes in the running, Park Se-young and Lee Han-bin. Now, good results from tonight's heats for the men and women will take them to the finals coming up on Saturday. And also, Korea has a shot at adding medals tonight at around 8 p.m. again with the ladies, this time in the 3,000-meter relay finals. 5 Korean women will be part of the relay race, including all of the ladies who will be in the earlier short track event. And then at 10 o'clock Korea time, we also have 25-year-old Lee Seung-hoon. He's competing for a medal in the men's 10,000-meter speed skating race. Here, he will try to redeem himself from finishing 12th in the 500-meter race last week. Now, Lee actually won the gold in the 10,000-meter race at the 2010 Winter Olympics. So we'll see if he can defend that title tonight.
Well, we will all keep our fingers crossed. A very exciting night ahead of us. We're all hoping Korea can add some more medals. But speaking of medals, Connie, how about a look at the current medal standings?
Well, Korea remains in 17th place with a total of 3 Olympic medals, but of course that could change tonight. Germany is actually still number 1 with a total of 8 gold medals, the latest coming from the ski jump event, while the Netherlands fell to 3rd place as Russia moved up to 2nd with a total of 18 Olympic medals. And the U.S. is back in the top 5 with 5 gold medals, and Norway is in 5th. Now let's take a look at the rest of the schedule for today and early tomorrow. That's all I have for you tonight on the Olympics. Back to you, Kanyang and Daniel.
Well, thank you for that, Connie. I have no doubt that you will have some stories of golden glory tonight because I'm willing to stake Kanyang's reputation that the Korean women's relay team will win gold.
My reputation.
Let's hope so.
All right, thank you, Connie. Now, Sochi, sleepy resort city where the rich and powerful would seek respite on the Black Sea while enjoying winter sports on the mountains.
But the city, now bustling with tens of thousands of people from all corners of the world, is filled with festivities around the clock. Our Olympics correspondent Song Ji-sun filed this report from Sochi.
Practically everyone walking around Sochi is decked out in Olympics merchandise or their team uniform, and those who aren't are lined up at shops.
I wait to buy some clothes during 15 minutes. It's cool, I think.
And even if you weren't lucky enough to get a ticket to the games, you can still be part of the Olympic excitement. Here at downtown Sochi, the Olympic vibe is alive both among domestic and foreign fans who have gathered here for the Olympics. You can buy souvenirs, watch ongoing games, and cheer for your favorite athletes here at one of the live sites across the city. With tickets harder to get each day, the sites have become a place for all to join. Despite early reports that Sochi wasn't fully prepared for the games, fans are enjoying every moment, and avid Olympic fans who have been following the Winter Olympics even before the Sochi Games are already looking ahead to 2018 when the global event will be held in Pyeongchang.
So far, everything has been fantastic. The volunteers have been really helpful whenever we're getting lost, and everything's been really well organized. And
so we went to Vancouver in 2010. We've been here, and now 2018 we're planning to go to see the next set of games.
To these fans, the only pity is that the Olympics last for just a little over 2 weeks, and another wait of 4 years is right around the corner, just as it is for the athletes. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News, Sochi.
Let's now get a check on the weather forecast with our Michelle Park, and she is standing by at the Weather Center. Now, Michelle, before we get into Korea's forecast, let's take a look at the conditions in Sochi. You know, warm temperatures have been making headlines, right?
That's right, Kanyang, and making matters even worse, it's been raining in the region and some of the events that were scheduled for today were actually postponed until tomorrow because of the heat and fog.
Well, Mother Nature never seems to be very cooperative with the Winter Games. When can people in the area expect to see better conditions for some winter sporting action?
Well, Daniel, the rain will continue overnight. However, a mostly sunny day is in the forecast tomorrow and a daytime high of 11 degrees. And now the updates for Korea. The heavy snowfall in the East Coast region has currently stopped. However, we can expect more snow on Thursday and Friday. Meanwhile, the other regions can actually expect a cloudy day tomorrow with a high of 8 degrees. Now, going over to our readings, we won't be seeing much of the sun nationwide. Seoul will start off the morning at -2 degrees and gets up to 5 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will get up to 6 and 7 degrees respectively. Now down on Jeju Island, it's going to be a cloudy day with a high of 9 degrees. Daejeon will get up to 6 while Dokdo hits 0 and Mankeumgang tops out at -7. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park and back to you guys.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Choi.
And I'm Moon Go-young. Thank you as always for being here with us. Have a wonderful rest of the evening and we'll see you right back here same time tomorrow. Good night.